There is this famous Google interview question that everyone gets wrong. You're shrunk down to the size of a nickel and put into a blender. The blades will start spinning in 60 seconds. So what do you do?
I would like to think I could
jump in the air.
Acting like a toddler is a job.
You jump. You go on top of the middle. Jump, and it's gonna whirl you up in the air.
duck down and miss the blades.
Break the thing at the bottom, maybe?
Ask nicely for the blender not to be turned on.
Tie my clothes together and then like use it as a rope, I guess.
If I was lighter, I could maybe catch a draft up.
Just accept defeat.
I mean, I'm the size of a nickel. What quality of life is that?
Okay, resonance. I'm gonna run to one wall, push on it, run to the other wall, push on it, run to the other wall, so I'm gonna tip the container over. Honestly, the thing I would think about is trying to get to the very center of the blades. It's spinning around me, but the actual RPM is probably not that high if I'm standing in the middle. I tie my clothes to one of the tips of the blades. As it's starting up, yeah, I get it to swing me around, and then I, woo!
But these answers don't cut it. Now, I first heard about this problem in this book. It describes how each year Google received about 3 million applications, but they would only hire 7,000 people. That's a 0.2% acceptance rate.
I would get hired in a heartbeat.
So one way to screen out millions of applicants was to use brain teasers. And the interviewers would make these up for fun.
We didn't get a list at that time of what questions to ask. We would share questions among each other.
Some of them gained traction. Questions like, how many golf balls can fit in a 747? Or how much should you charge to wash all the windows in Seattle? But the blender question really stuck with me, and I'm not alone.
You just lay back, enjoy that breeze. The best model in the world is only gonna run maybe 10 or 11 hours. So we're getting out, and when we do, we're better off for it, because whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
The question has been hotly debated in Reddit comment sections. There are so many different...
I've played these games before. Brother, easy clap. If you played any Zelda, you jump in the middle, it spins, you get the gust, you go in the air, like what?
Answers. But which one is the best?
I'll try to hide underneath the blades, I guess.
Hide under the blade, probably.
Great first reaction, but maybe that doesn't solve your problem entirely. Now you're just stuck inside of a spinning blender. So maybe you want to escape.
Can I climb the walls? Are there defects in the walls that are sufficiently large for me to grip onto? Do I have van der Waals forces?
Yeah, basically, so way too hard.
Connect me to the wall. Am I like essentially a tiny gecko?
A gecko can stick to the wall of a blender even though neither its foot nor the glass are charged. The gecko's foot has to be pressed firmly against the glass, so its atoms are within a few nanometers of the glass atoms. Then, at any moment, one atom's electrons aren't uniformly spread about the nucleus. They might be slightly more on one side than the other. This makes the atom momentarily slightly positively charged on one side and slightly negatively charged on the other. The glass atom next to it experiences the pull of this charge imbalance, and so a similar charge imbalance is induced on the glass atom.
This starts sucking.
Therefore, the electrons in the glass atom are drawn to the nucleus of the gecko atom and vice versa. So there is a very weak attractive force between neutral atoms. This is known as a van der Waals force, and it's...
I had this similar, the reason I noticed, it's like when I pull my stick and your mother's mouth is close by, there's this thing that happens like that.
Makes geckos stick to walls.
Because your mother.
It's the same force that holds graphite together. There's no actual bonding between the layers of graphene and pencil. It's like a stack of paper. The layers only stick because of van der Waals forces. Now, these forces are pretty weak, but since we're so small, maybe they'd be enough to help us climb out.
This I can almost certainly say. We wouldn't be sticky at that scale. And that's because the van der Waals type interactions are still small. And I studied cloning, so that of these types, cockroach and gecko, it turns out that you have to get very special to do that.
Geckos have millions of tiny branches on their feet that increase their surface area and allow them to mold to surfaces. Our hands aren't like that, but ants and cockroaches don't rely on
That makes me kind of sad. I don't know why, because not everything is scalable. It gives you the thinking that not anything you're gonna do can be scaled up because then the physics operate differently.
Your walls forces, and
I find it
they
to be
can
kinda
still
sad.
climb up walls.
That means that we cannot
So
have
maybe
super
a
giants.
miniature human could too.
The mechanism of a cockroach foot, and I used to know all about cockroach feet, is absolutely gorgeous. Same with a hand, by the way. There's two little claws, the intarsal claws. Those are things that slap down on a surface and really do slap.
Ew!
Little claws, the intarsal claws. Those are things that slap down.
Ew! Brother, chat, we need an anti-insect act where everybody bonds together, chat, flamethrowers, and we eradicate disgusting ass bugs.
On a
Chat,
surface and
I
really
can start doing that for us.
Meters a second. Thwack engage, despite having no adhesion, have very sophisticated frictional attachment.
Those claws can grip almost anything, even glass. While glass feels smooth to us, it's actually covered in tiny surface imperfections, and at insect scale, these features are significant.
Ants basically have climbing gear.
Well, yeah.
They're like using little like axes basically to pick their way in. We don't have the attachment disc.
It's like the ibex. The ibex on the wall. Small brick imperfections, just enough for the hoof, small with the thing, and it on the wall.
Or like the special claws or the Van der Waals forces.
No, we have claws. If you're that scale, our fingers are claws.
But we have 2 claws, really. And then our feet aren't great at climbing. I don't know.
Well, again, at scale though, I don't know, right? Imagine putting a little sharp spike into your foot, then sharpen your shoes, wear high heel shoes. You'll be good to go.
So the answer to the puzzle is
now I'm climbing in heels. But there's still a problem. I mean, I'll have to be pretty careful placing each hand and foot slowly. It's gonna take longer than 60 seconds to get out. And in that time, the blades will have started spinning. One mistake, and I'm a smoothie. So Google was looking for a different answer.
Okay, now we're going to the physics building. Maybe they know?
Yeah, I really got nothing. I'm stumped.
This is so embarrassing. We're in like our last year of our degree. We should definitely know this.
I feel like I could probably swing running around the sides and yeeting myself out.
Okay, if we're just talking about the entropy, it should increase at some point. So some sort of chaos should be. None of the system will stay undisrupted. Take that as a limit to infinity and I'll be chilling. Like using that logic, if I just like extrapolate, right? No, that's still too big for me to quantum tunnel or anything like that.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I mean, that is really overthinking it. It's
Chad is the type of guy that even though he has a correct answer, you're like, ugh.
actually not that complicated.
Do you want to hear the best answer I've heard yet?
Sure.
Just jump.
Just jump? How would that work?
Just jump.
Your mother must have those
Does
little
that work like
claws
that?
because
Jump
she
where?
latches
Out of the blender, just go up.
So whoever told you that is...
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense to you?
No, it doesn't, but...
Do you want to hear why that works?
Yeah, tell me how it works.
Jumping out of a blender seems impossible because at nickel size, the wall of a blender is 15 times your height. It'd be like leaping over an 8-story building.
Chat.
But watch these clips. Did you notice it?
The smaller you are, the bigger leap you can get according to your size. If you're a bitch ass buster with legs, you can snap into the air.
A horse, a dog, and a squirrel, they all jump to about the same height.
Because the bigger it is, when you scale up, the more intricate and more heavy the legs are. And if you could do that as a human, you would break your legs.
This is exactly what Alfonso Borelli, the father of biomechanics, looked at in the 17th century. As he put it, in the same conditions, smaller and lighter animals make bigger jumps relative to their body, if the other conditions are equal, and indeed the limbs and the other organs are in the same proportion. The dog will jump as far as the horse. Now, sure, there is variation. A species whose survival depends on jumping will be optimized for it, while others, like turtles and elephants, they don't jump at all. But
grasshoppers, chat, go like 160 times their fucking length in jump size.
When you consider the huge variations in size, I mean, a horse is 1,500 times heavier than a squirrel. It's incredible that they jump to around the same height. And it's not because squirrels are super muscly or something. Horses and squirrels have similar muscle to weight percentages, and insects have even less muscle relative to their weight.
Why do you think an ant can lift 50 times its own body weight? Like, is it any more muscular? No, you guys hit the gym, come on. Like, you're more muscular than an ant.
So how are small things so strong? Well, if you look closely at a muscle, it's made up of tiny units called sarcomeres. They act like miniature springs.
Chat.
How far a muscle
Chat.
compresses
Chat.
depends on...
Is that why Tyler is so strong? Is he so tiny that it does this myofibril? Dude.
How many of these springs are in series? But the strength
Chat,
of a muscle...
Tyler's so cute. I wish I could put him in my pocket.
How many are working in parallel?
Carry him around.
So the thicker the muscle, the more springs are in parallel, and the greater the strength. Therefore, strength depends on the cross-sectional area of a muscle. And as animals shrink, this cross-sectional area scales down with the square of their height. But an animal's weight is proportional to its volume, so that scales with the cube of their height. So as you scale down, weight decreases faster than strength. And as a result, smaller animals have much higher strength to weight ratios.
I mean, you could probably...
Wait, chat, so that confirms that the big dinosaurs were kind of dog shit. Because they're massive, but they're kind of shit. Their ratios were inefficient and useless.
lift your own weight. Like if you were to put your own body weight on your back and squat that, you could now lift 100
times.
Yeah.
Let's go. And for us stuck in that blender, that...
Chat, so the heart. Animals that have a heart that pumps blood, if they're very small, the heart can be fucking insane. They can just do a small squeezing. Bum, 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 and it has to go through less gravity. It's why the bunnies are like 360 BPM.
That extra strength relative to our weight means we could jump right out.
Your surface area decreases with the square. You'd be like a little Superman.
I see, okay.
That's really cool. So I could jump like literally out of a blender.
You could jump out of a blender.
But in movies and games where people are shrunk, they almost never show it like that.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. I love that.
Tiny people struggle picking up scissors. They almost get crushed by raindrops. If it was scientifically accurate, they'd actually be overpowered. Most people don't think of this when they first hear the question. The answer almost seems too simple.
When you ask the right questions, you define the problem. There's some really obvious solutions that work. And that's actually true for a lot of problems in the real world too.
Now, I'm all
I
for
said at the beginning,
obvious solutions.
I would jump.
From the start, the answer of jumping out didn't sit right with me.
Google's
Even this idea
downstairs.
of, like,
Like,
I'm gonna jump out of the blender. Like, that doesn't make sense to me because jumping is not just like, okay,
I said I would go to the middle and fucking jump. I said that.
how strong you are relative to your weight. It's also timing and your kinetics and all that. So like, how long can you be in touch with the ground? How much can you apply that force in one burst, like over a really short period?
Would it be fair to say you're overthinking things? you gotta suspend your disbelief somewhere.
I think if you like factor in all the potential challenges a human would have, just like if they're just all of a sudden that size, they don't have like time to practice using their legs and stuff in that new environment. Like, I don't give them very good chances of jumping out.
Sometimes there are people who make everything more complex.
Chat. So that kind of proves that, like, there's no massive beings in the world because that would be very inefficient. If they were smart, they would make it very small, right? In a world with these aliens, it'd be better if the humans were like 1/10 of the size. It'd be much more efficient at moving things around in the world and achieving their goals.
And it needs to be, and that can be problematic.
I would like to see.
What if the way that they built the pyramids is that they were tiny?
See, like, you know, realistic modeling of like, we scale me down 100 times. Like, can I jump higher? Like, I want to see someone do those physics equations. Like, yeah, you could jump higher, but you couldn't jump 100 times higher, you know?
So that's why we got the researchers at Georgia Tech's biomechanics lab to investigate. While they are figuring that out, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Incogni. Every height of this control of see how that centimeters tall, and we have to jump at least 30 centimeters to get out.
I was like, well, what about me? Like, I'm pretty, you know, embarrassingly non-athletic. What if I do this? And I did it right here next to my desk. My partner sort of measured my jump height, and I know how much I weigh and all that stuff. So what would it look like for me? If we have a person that weighs 84 kilograms, is squatting 15 centimeters, and has...
Chat, if I was Google, chat, I would try to hire the most, like, autists, like, as in, like, okay, that sounds, okay, forget it.
Has a jump height of 27 centimeters. That person, if they were scaled down to
I can't get out of this one. Always.
They would jump 42 centimeters high.
The simple simulation shows a jump height of 42 centimeters. So you would make it out, but we need to add in air resistance.
Chat, people that I would hire, chat, people that whenever they do something, it's everything to them. Like, this small problem becomes their life, and they can't breathe without fixing that or doing that, right? Finding the factor that makes somebody like that at my company.
Since our cross-sectional area is now 100 times larger relative to our weight, drag should have a greater effect at nickel size.
If it was 42 centimeter jump height before for the jumper, with drag, considering drag, then it's about 39 centimeters. So we do decrease in jump height a little bit.
But that drag calculation is assuming you jump perfectly vertically. But what if you're a bit uncoordinated and you flip onto your side mid-jump? Well, then you're exposing 10 times the surface area, and that increases the amount of air resistance.
Like, if somehow you flipped and you were still moving up like this, like, what is the air resistance then?
They're taking too much. The grasshopper, when it jumps, it does a bunch of bullshit, okay? It does whatever. It launches anyway. It doesn't give a shit.
So doing that...
In practice, this doesn't matter that much.
22 centimeter jump height. Oh, so we don't, oh darn. If you start getting overconfident and you wanted to do like a backflip while you were at it, then you're gonna mess it up, yeah.
Don't backflip out of the blender. It's a good piece of business.
Don't try and show off. You're trying to not get chopped up. Just go head first.
It's not so much getting out of the blender, it's what happens next.
You've got 2 nickel-sized men free in the world. Think of the possibilities.
The simulation came back. You can jump out of the freaking blender.
Chad, if you're jumping at an angle and you're flipping, aren't you subject to less air resistance? If you're going in a certain direction at a certain rotation, like in a backflip, no?
All right. Okay. I'm glad we went through this this exercise.
Do you want me to do another month of research on this?
No. Like, you've done enough. You've done enough. I'm convinced.
Chat.
I feel like jumping isn't. It was unsatisfactory when you mentioned it in the first place. And you went through and you got the simulation, you got the model, and you're like, look, you know, our little guy can jump 40 centimeters, so are you convinced now? And I'm like, I guess? But like, my spidey sense was tingling.
Oh, what's it now?
Something going on. You're telling me that I have to apply a force in 1/1000th of a second, and I have to undergo 278 Gs. I'm not gonna survive that. So what I'm getting now is that like my intuition was good. I think everyone's intuition who's like, you can't jump out of a blender.
Chad, when you're smaller, you can survive that, right? When you're smaller, you don't get hurt as much.
I think they're right. And you may say, well, that's overthinking it. But that's the whole point of the brain teaser, is to overthink it, is to get to that point where you're thinking about it in the detail of like what would actually be feasible.
A whole lot of things would go wrong. Our hearts have to generate.
Chat, if I showed you how I was landing and how I was falling when I was a kid doing skateboarding and shit like that, okay, brother, you would wonder how I'm alive, but it's just kind of how it is though. Like, you can tank more when you're smaller. Like and subscribe.